Listen to me. Just stop for a second and breathe. Now ask yourself this question: am I doing too much for others? And don't just brush it off. Don't say, I'm just a nice person. Don't say, that's just who I am. Look in the mirror and answer with honesty, because here's the truth. If you're always empty, you can't help anybody. Some of you are bending over backwards for people who wouldn't lean forward for you. You're showing up every day, giving your time, your energy, your resources, and then you go home drained, frustrated, and wondering why nobody's doing the same for you. Let me teach you something. Selflessness without boundaries is self-destruction. You can't be the hero in everyone's life and the villain in your own. You can't keep saving people who are committed to staying stuck. Some people don't want your help. They want your sacrifice. And that's not help. That's exploitation. You were not created to be used and discarded. You were created to lead, to grow, to elevate. And that takes energy. It takes focus. It takes balance. Every time you say yes to someone else without thinking, you might be saying no to your own peace, your own goals, your own growth. Ask yourself, are you helping or are you enabling? Are you building others up or tearing yourself down in the process? Let's get real. You can't pour from an empty cup. You want to serve? Start by serving yourself. Set boundaries, prioritize your time. Protect your mental space. When you elevate your standards, the right people will rise with you and the wrong ones will fall away. Let them, because your value isn't in what you give away. Your value is in who you are, how you grow, and the purpose you're fulfilling. That kind of strength, that kind of leadership, it doesn't come from being everything to everyone. It comes from being loyal to your vision, your mission, your calling. Start choosing you, not out of selfishness, but out of wisdom, not out of ego, but out of purpose. You want to change the world? Start by not losing yourself in it. Selflessness without strategy leads to burnout. A lot of people wear selflessness like a badge of honor, thinking the more they give, the more valuable they are. They give their time, their energy, their resources, sometimes their peace, their joy, even their health, all in the name of being good, being kind, being available. But here's what you have to understand. Giving without strategy is like pouring water into a bucket with holes. You keep giving, but nothing stays full. Not your energy, not your motivation, and eventually, not even your purpose. You might be doing it out of love. You might be doing it because you were raised to always be there for people. Or maybe you think your worth is tied to how much you can give, how much you can fix, how many problems you can solve for everyone else. But there's a difference between giving out of purpose and giving out of pressure. One fills your soul, the other empties it. It starts subtly. You say yes to a few extra favors. You adjust your schedule to accommodate someone else's needs. You delay your dreams to help someone chase theirs. But then the pattern sets in. It becomes expected. You've trained people to believe you'll always be there, regardless of how you feel. And that's when it turns toxic, not because you're a bad person, but because your kindness has no guardrails. Selflessness without a plan becomes a cycle of sacrifice. You wake up one day and you don't even recognize yourself. You're tired, you're frustrated, and worst of all, you start to resent the very people you wanted to help. That's what burnout looks like. Not just physical exhaustion, but emotional depletion. The kind where you feel like no matter how much you do, it's never enough, because you never created a system to protect yourself while you were giving to others. Let me tell you this, boundaries are not walls. They're filters. They're not there to keep people out. They're there to keep you whole. When you create a strategy for your giving, when you set limits, protect your time, and prioritize your well-being, your impact actually grows. You serve better. You give with joy, not obligation. You show up fully present because you haven't sacrificed your essence in the process. You don't owe anyone endless access to your energy. You owe it to yourself to be intentional with who gets your time, your help, and your heart. Strategy means asking yourself questions like, am I helping because I'm the right person or just the available one? Is this a situation where I'm truly making a difference, or am I just delaying someone else's growth? Am I giving from a full cup, or am I pouring from fumes? These aren't selfish questions. They're responsible ones. Being selfless doesn't mean being silent about your own needs. It doesn't mean ignoring your own boundaries to meet someone else's expectations. And it definitely doesn't mean losing your identity in the process of trying to serve others. True selflessness is sustainable. It's strong. It's wise. It knows how to say no without guilt and how to say yes with clarity. So if you're burning out trying to be everything for everyone, it's time to pause. It's time to reflect. It's time to create a new definition of giving, one that includes you in the equation. Because the most powerful version of you isn't the one who gives until they collapse. It's the one who gives from a place of strength, strategy, and purpose. That's not selfish. That's leadership. You can't pour from an empty cup. That phrase might sound simple, but it holds deep truth. So many people are running through life trying to be everything for everyone. Caretakers, providers, counselors, friends, leaders, without ever stopping to refill their own cup. They give and give until they are drained, exhausted, and overwhelmed, and then they wonder why they feel resentful, disconnected, or even invisible. The truth is, if you neglect yourself long enough, you'll become a ghost in your own life. You'll keep functioning, but you won't be living. You'll be present, but not powerful. Because when the cup is empty, there's nothing left to give. People confuse self-care with selfishness, but the two couldn't be more different. Self-care is survival. It's sustainability. It's the oxygen mask on the airplane. You have to put yours on first before you can help anyone else. If you're mentally, emotionally, or physically exhausted, what you offer to others is diminished. You may still show up, but you're showing up half-charged, unfocused, or emotionally depleted. That's not service. That's self-neglect disguised as commitment. Think about it. When your phone battery is low, you don't expect it to run multiple apps, play music, and stream video. You know better. You find a charger, but when it's your own body, your own mind, your own soul running on 5%, you push harder. You guilt yourself into giving more. You say things like, I just have to get through this week, or they're counting on me. But who's counting on you to be whole? Who's holding you accountable for your peace, your healing, your rest? Recharging isn't a luxury, it's a responsibility. You have dreams to fulfill, goals to achieve, and people to impact. You can't do that running on empty. That means sometimes you got to say no. Not because you don't care, but because you care deeply, and you understand that your presence only has power when it comes from a place of wholeness. Saying no isn't rejection, it's reflection. It's knowing where your energy needs to go so you can give your best when it truly matters. It's not just about rest either. Filling your cup means doing the things that remind you who you are, reading, reflecting, praying, learning, exercising, laughing, breathing. It's about reconnecting with your core values, your purpose, your identity outside of what you do for others. Because if your entire value comes from what you give, you'll never feel enough when you're not giving. That's how people get stuck in cycles of burnout. They forget they are worthy even when they're resting, even when they're saying no, even when they're doing nothing at all but healing. You can't teach your kids strength if all they see is your exhaustion. You can't inspire your team if all they feel is your stress. You can't lift others if you're constantly carrying emotional baggage you haven't unpacked. Taking care of yourself isn't abandoning others. It's making sure you're strong enough to carry what's truly yours to carry and wise enough to set down what isn't. You weren't meant to be a machine. You are human. You're allowed to stop. You're allowed to breathe. You're allowed to prioritize yourself without apology, because when your cup is full, everything you give flows with energy, clarity, and love. And that's when you become most effective. Not when you're running dry, but when you're overflowing. So stop chasing empty. Stop pouring into everyone else while leaving yourself behind. Start filling your cup first. That's not weakness. It's wisdom. Doing for others doesn't mean neglecting yourself. There's a dangerous mindset out there that says the more you sacrifice, the more noble you are. That if you constantly put others first, your family, your friends, your coworkers, you're somehow being the best version of yourself. But the truth is, constantly placing yourself last doesn't make you strong. It makes you disappear. You were never meant to be an afterthought in your own life. When you consistently push your needs aside, when you silence your voice to uplift everyone else's, you slowly start to lose connection with who you are, what you want, and where you're going. This is how people wake up one day feeling lost. Not because they failed, but because they've been so busy showing up for everyone else that they stopped showing up for themselves. They gave and gave, but forgot to check in with their own dreams, their own energy, their own direction. You see, you can serve without surrendering your identity. You can help others without hurting yourself. Balance doesn't mean you ignore others. It means you don't forget yourself. Let's get something clear. Taking care of yourself is not selfish, it's foundational. It's the base from which everything else flows. Think of it like a building. If the foundation is cracked or weak, it doesn't matter how beautifully you design the rest, the whole thing will collapse under pressure. You are that foundation. Your physical health, your emotional well-being, your clarity of purpose, all of it matters just as much as what you're doing for others. Neglecting yourself while supporting others isn't love. It's a form of self-abandonment. Many people carry guilt when they try to take time for themselves. They feel like they're letting people down or being lazy. But let's break that lie. You can't be your best for others if you're not being your best for yourself. How can you give wise advice when your own mind is clouded? How can you uplift others when you're weighed down? You're not doing anyone a favor by showing up half alive. You want to serve from strength, serve from awareness, serve from a place where your cup isn't empty, where your vision is clear, where your body and soul are not in constant survival mode. You weren't born to just play supporting roles in other people's stories. You've got your own mission, your own voice, your own goals. And yes, there will be seasons of sacrifice. Yes, there will be moments when others need more of you. But that can't become your default setting. You've got to have moments where you pause and ask, am I still aligned with who I'm becoming? Because if your journey is always about someone else's success, someone else's healing, someone else's path, when do you get to grow? When do you get to win? Understand this: when you honor your own needs, you teach others how to do the same. When you respect your own boundaries, you empower those around you to follow suit. You become a living example, not of overextension, but of balanced strength. That kind of leadership doesn't just help others temporarily, it inspires transformation. So don't confuse constant self-sacrifice with love. Real love, real sustainable love includes you in the equation. And the moment you begin to value yourself just as much as those you serve, you'll stop running on empty and start living from overflow. You matter too, not after the work is done, not after everyone else is satisfied. Right now, every single day, evaluate the energy exchange. Every relationship, every interaction, every connection you pour into is an exchange of time, emotion, focus, and most importantly, energy. The question isn't just, am I giving? The real question is, what am I receiving in return? Because if you're constantly in environments where you're the only one pouring, you're going to run dry. If you're the only one checking in, the only one giving advice, the only one showing up when it's inconvenient, then you're not in a healthy connection. You're in an imbalance that will slowly drain you mentally, emotionally, and even physically. This is not about keeping score. This isn't tit for tat or only giving when you get something back. It's about alignment. It's about knowing whether the energy you give is respected, appreciated, and reciprocated in a way that allows you to keep growing. You're not wrong for helping people. You're not wrong for giving your time and energy. But you need to pause and examine, is this relationship one-sided? Is it empowering me or exhausting me? Because not every connection is worth keeping, and not everyone who needs you is meant to have constant access to you. You can't afford to waste your strength in spaces where you're not being fed. Growth requires intentional environments. It requires mutual respect, honesty, and support. And if you're the only one trying to keep things alive, always the one reaching out, always the one compromising, always the one picking up the pieces, then you're not in a relationship, you're in a role. And that role will cost you. It will cost you your peace. It will cost you your focus. Sometimes it even costs you your sense of self because you built your identity around being the helper, the fixer, the one who holds it all together. But who's holding you? You need to give yourself permission to let go of relationships that only take from you. Not in anger, not in bitterness, but in clarity, because your energy is a resource. It's not unlimited. Every minute you spend pouring into something that isn't growing is a minute you're not watering your own garden. Every hour you spend being someone else's emotional crutch is an hour you could have spent building your purpose, healing your wounds, or moving toward your vision. You are not obligated to stay in places where your value is only in what you give. Your worth is not based on how useful you are to others. The people who truly care about you will never make you feel guilty for needing rest, for setting boundaries, or for choosing your own well-being. They won't just celebrate you when you're useful. They'll support you when you're vulnerable. That's real connection. That's real energy exchange. So take inventory. Think about the people you invest in. Ask yourself, do they uplift me or do they drain me? Do they support my growth or do they only benefit from my sacrifice? Because when you start honoring your energy, you become more intentional with your time. You stop showing up out of guilt and start showing up out of purpose. And when your energy is protected, your impact multiplies. You show up stronger, more focused, more alive. That's when the real transformation begins, not just for others, but for you. Sometimes helping too much is actually hurting. It's hard to accept, but it's the truth. There comes a point when your support becomes a crutch, when your assistance stops being empowering and starts becoming enabling, and you don't even realize it at first. You think you're being kind. You think you're doing the right thing by always showing up, always fixing, always stepping in. But over time, you become the person who carries the weight for everyone else, and they stop learning how to carry it for themselves. They stop growing because they've come to expect that you'll always rescue them. And in trying to protect them, you unintentionally stunt their progress. You have to ask yourself, am I truly helping this person grow, or am I just making things more comfortable for them to stay stuck? There's a big difference. Growth requires discomfort. It requires responsibility. And if you're constantly stepping in to solve someone else's problems, they never learn how to solve their own. You may think you're saving them, but what you're really doing is delaying their development. You're shielding them from lessons they need to face. And deep down, that's not love, that's fear. Fear that they'll fall without you. Fear that if you don't step in, something will go wrong. But here's the truth: their growth is not your responsibility. Your support should empower, not replace accountability. And let's not forget what it does to you in the process. Every time you overextend yourself for someone who refuses to grow, you pay a price. You stretch yourself thin. You give your time, your energy, your peace, and sometimes even your money, only to watch the same patterns repeat. It becomes a cycle. They call, you answer, they fall, you catch. But where's your safety net? Who's catching you while you're catching everyone else? You start to carry guilt when you think about stepping back. You feel like you're abandoning someone. But it's not abandonment, it's clarity. You can't want someone's growth more than they do. You can't force someone to change if they're not ready to do the work. And your constant rescue missions won't make them grow faster. They'll make them dependent. True help doesn't always feel comfortable. Sometimes it means stepping back so someone can step up. Sometimes it means letting them face the consequences of their choices. That's not cruelty, it's wisdom. It's knowing that growth doesn't come from being saved, it comes from being challenged. It comes from learning through failure, through pressure, through trial. You can support someone without carrying their entire weight. You can be present without being the solution to every problem. Because if they never learn to stand without you, they'll never learn to stand at all. And what happens if you burn out while carrying everyone else? What happens if you collapse under the weight of constantly helping people who refuse to help themselves? Then what? You can't keep draining yourself in the name of love. Real love includes truth. Real support includes limits. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do for someone is to stop saving them and start holding them accountable. Let them struggle a little, let them fall, let them face the moment, because that's where their strength is built. So take a step back, not because you don't care, but because you care enough to let them grow. You're not the answer to everyone's problems. And the moment you realize that you free yourself to focus on your own purpose, your own healing, and your own growth, you stop trying to control their journey and start honoring your own. That's not failure, it's wisdom, and it's necessary. You have to protect your peace at all costs. In a world that constantly demands your attention, your energy, your availability, and your emotional labor, peace is no longer a luxury, it's a necessity. And if you don't guard it, people will take it without even realizing it. Every phone call, every favor, every last-minute request, every person who dumps their drama on you without ever asking how you're doing, that's a withdrawal from your peace. And if you're not careful, you'll look up one day and realize that your life is filled with noise, chaos, and pressure that doesn't even belong to you. You're fighting battles that aren't yours. You're solving problems you didn't create, and you're paying the emotional price for everyone else's lack of boundaries. You need to understand something powerful. Not everyone deserves access to your energy. Just because someone is close to you doesn't mean they have the right to disturb your peace. Just because someone needs help doesn't mean you are the one meant to provide it. And just because you can handle it doesn't mean you should. There's strength in discernment. There's wisdom in knowing when to engage and when to step away. You're not responsible for fixing everyone. You're not required to be available 24/7, and you don't owe anyone constant emotional access just because they're used to it. Peace isn't passive, it's intentional. It means saying no when your soul is tired. It means stepping back when your spirit is heavy. It means cutting off conversations that leave you drained. It means unfollowing, muting, walking away, and sometimes even letting go of relationships that bring more confusion than clarity. Your peace is your power. It's what allows you to think clearly, move intentionally, and create with purpose. When your peace is intact, you make better decisions. You speak from a place of calm instead of chaos. You move from vision instead of reaction. But when you let people disturb that peace, you start living in survival mode, always reacting, always fixing, always exhausted. And don't let guilt trick you into self-sabotage. Some people will make you feel bad for choosing peace. They'll say you've changed, that you're distant, that you're selfish. But they're only upset because your boundaries disrupt their comfort. They benefited when you had no limits. They were happy when you said yes to everything, even when it cost you. But growth will always require you to disappoint people who have unrealistic expectations. Let them be uncomfortable. Let them talk. You're not living for their approval. You're living for your alignment. You don't owe anyone an explanation for protecting your space. Not everyone will understand your journey. Not everyone will support your transformation. But the ones who truly love and respect you will honor your boundaries. They will celebrate your peace. They will understand that a whole, healthy, centered version of you is the best gift you can give. And anyone who can't handle your peace was never aligned with your purpose in the first place. So today, reclaim your space. Be bold about it. Be unapologetic. Your peace is sacred. Guard it. Prioritize it. Build your life around it. Because the more you protect it, the more powerful, present, and purposeful you become. And that's when you truly start living, not reacting to life, but leading it from the inside out.